Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Reads. Today I want to talk about the second book in the Dragonquest trilogy, Dragonquest, which I don't have an image of because all I have is the collected omnibus and not the actual individual novel. That's just the cover that I saw when I was, Michael Whalen's artwork. So, anywho, second book. There will be spoilers for the first book, which I'm going to get out of the way right now. So, this book takes place 7 years after the events of Dragonflight, and basically deals with the repercussions of that book. In the first book, we discover that dragons can teleport not just through space, but also through time. So, with only one dragon weir being active, and not knowing why the other 5 were abandoned, Lessa takes it upon herself to take her dragon and travel back in time 400 years to then bring the people from the previous 5 abandoned weirs forward in time to help Bendon Weir. So she goes back in time. It almost kills her. She brings the other dragon weirs. I keep saying dragon weir. A weir is like a cave where they keep the dragons in, where the dragons live. So, if you haven't read the books, anyway, it's been 7 years. Lessa's queen Ramoth continues to mate and produce gold eggs for new queens. But the old timers, as they have become to be called, are not adjusting well. They're used to being privileged. They're used to people giving them whatever they ask for without hesitation. And in the 400 years since then, the holds, the lords who are in charge of the holds and the craftsmen have become a bit more independent and autonomous, and are unwilling to just bend over backwards to give these people whatever whim strikes their fancy. Flora and Lessa, from the quote-unquote modern age, are used to things the way they have been for the last 4 centuries. The world has changed. The old-timers are not adjusting well, and it's causing a lot of tension and a lot of conflict. Once again, Flora has to take control of the situation, try to diplomatically get the other old-timers to step up and accept that things have changed, which is very difficult and has some repercussions, I guess. There are also some discoveries. They discover fire lizards, which are little miniature dragons about the size of house cats, or when they're fully grown, about the size of house cats. And they're related to the big dragons that people ride. And it's been speculated that they've been bred for centuries to become these large dragons for the little fire. They have a lot of the same abilities. They don't know if they can breathe fire or not. Something that's been discovered or not in these books. But they can help with the thread. They're not quite as intelligent. They're more intelligent than house cats. But so there's that. There is also more. One of the things I liked about the second book in the series is that there's more interaction among the characters. The first book, Dragonflight, is very raw. I had not read it before I did my original review, which I probably should have. I was thinking, after I did the review, I was like, man, I haven't read these books in forever. I should just quickly reread these. I should have reread these before the review. I might not have rated them as highly as I did, especially that first book. The sequel is much better written, in my opinion, and you get to see things from other characters' points of view, and you get more personal interaction, I think. The first book is more action-y, where things, I mean, there's plot development, things like the character development, but things need to happen. Whereas the second book takes a slower pace and is more world building and more about plot and character development than the actiony stuff in the first book. And I like that we're introduced to other characters and get to see their points of view as well. You know, far less are the main characters. We do see others in the first book, though. They're still the primary characters in the sequel, in Dragonquest, but we see more of Flar's brother Fëanor, and I know it's stupid names, but it's fantasy science fiction, and it sounds worse when I say them out loud than when I read them, which is why I made that little comment. But we see things from his point of view from time to time, and we see his interactions with it. We see his interactions with him with other characters. We also see more of the craftsman in this book. I especially like the Master Harper and the Master Smith. They are both characters who entertain me. And there's characters who do not entertain me, characters who are meant to be disliked. I don't want to give away too much of the story. I think I've given some of the major plot beats. There's another plot beat where, now that there's enough dragons, especially with the dissatisfaction of some of the old timers, some of the lord holders at one point in the book express a desire to have the dragons go to the planet Pern, where the thread comes from, and destroy it at its source, that way to eliminate it forever. That point does come up in this book, and it is in some points a major point of contention in the book. Not as much in the beginning, more towards the latter half of the book. One of the little tidbits I found out about is that when McCaffrey was really struggling to write a sequel to Dragonflight, and when she handed the manuscript over to her agent and her editor, the first draft, they told her to burn it, which she did. She completely burned her first draft and then rewrote it to make this the sequel that we have now. And it does have a lot more. Does have more polish than the first book. Definitely an improvement over Dragonflight. One thing that does somewhat, I wouldn't say concern me. I guess maybe it hasn't aged well, and I guess that pops up a lot. That phrase pops up a lot with these older books from the 60s and 70s. And a surprising amount of mild sexism in the books, which I find unusual from a female author, especially in the 60s and 70s. But when I was discussing this with my daughter, she does mention the age it was written in, and she mentions the audience it was being written for, which was young men. So as much as I can sort of fault McCaffrey for her mild sexism, and surprised at the mild sexism, I can't say, it's something I didn't notice when I read these books as a 15-year-old, but I was young and stupid. What did I know then? Even from a mother who was being taught by a mother who was a feminist, a lot of this stuff, because this stuff was just so, in the background anyway, you kind of tended to look over it. I've become a bit more, hopefully a bit better at noticing this stuff as I've gotten older, and hopefully I'm a better person than I was when I was 15. But I may be biased in that opinion. So, yeah. Dragonquest is better than Dragonflight in my opinion, but not as much action. It's a slower paced book. I do still enjoy it. I'm rereading the third book in the trilogy right now, but we'll talk about that when I get to it. When I finish and review it, I'll probably review another book between that and this one. So, good book. I'll give it a B+ as far as that goes, mostly because I think it's aged poorly, not because I think it's, I think if it had aged better, I would have made it A material, but definitely a fun read. Even rereading it 30 years later, I still enjoyed it. I don't know if any of you are going to read it, but it's not a long book. These books are not hard to read. So the first two books in the trilogy, definitely fairly short, fairly easy reads. So maybe if you wanted to pick them up, go for it. These are also staples of science fiction history. You know, these are some of the classics. Dragon Quest was nominated for a Hugo Award. Didn't win. Was one of 6 nominees for the Hugo Award in 1979, I think. I remember. But so it was well received. It's considered a classic of science fiction literature, along with all the other books in the first 2 trilogies of the Dragon Riders of Pern. So take that for what it's will. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this rambling crap, I don't know what to tell you. And until next time, good hunting.